That's such a gross, seedy lifestyle.
Why professional wrestling is the perfect form of entertainment. Yes, we talk about comics. Yes, we talk about actors. I just like travel hubs. I like airports, bus stations, shit like that. I just like them.
At the most basic level of fame, you constantly have the option to get laid. Farley died doing what he loved to. He will tell you I'm a bad driver, but there's no way
To win, and I'm Nick. Dude, people fall for absolute monsters on a regular basis.
Fuck, why doesn't it go to my fucking...
All right, welcome to the latest episode of Two Hippies, One Drunk. I gotta fucking clear my throat for a second because, oh my god, Tyler made a bodily doo-wop as he was starting it, and Eric just goes, easy there, Adam Sandler. And I think that was the first time, you gave me a hard spit take.
a cough take. That's what that is.
That's funny.
Actually, introduce the show.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the Two Hippies, One Drunk podcast, and our show is a little different. It's a little special in that we both every week we switch hosts between the three of us, and we talk for an hour about whatever we want between me and two of my very good comedian friends. Yeah. And this week, also rate us 5 stars on iTunes. We're on Stitcher, Spotify, all that. Yep.
There was something I was thinking real quick before we've done these that we don't say enough at the beginning, and damn it, now I kind of was trying to remember it, but fuck, man, I had it written down, I forgot. But what we were talking about, I think we said a lot of times at the end about the interaction and the sharing and stuff. But just if you could share this, and if you like listening, we'd really appreciate it if you could share and ask people to like it and follow us on Two Hippies, One Drunk on Facebook, just so people see that the shows are going.
Yeah,
and stuff,
and comment and stuff. We love interacting with you guys. Any kind of thing like that is fantastic. I don't know. Interacting with the audience has been one of the craziest, best part of this so far, because we've been doing it for 14 episodes.
This is episode 14. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's just it's pretty nuts, and it's been honestly growing. And it's not something we want to brag about, but it's been nice interacting with people that actually like our content. So thank you. And do it more.
All right. Subscribe. Now that we got the ass kissing out of the way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you guys this week. I wanted to do, this will be a theme I will definitely end up going back to for some of my episodes. For sure. I wanted to talk to you guys about conspiracy theories because, and specifically this week, I wanted to talk about the conspiracy theory that George H.W. Bush was involved in the Kennedy assassination. And yeah, I've been very into conspiracy theories because one of those, I guess my interest in magic didn't make me weird enough to talk to at work.
So you decided to go out other routes.
Yeah.
You're just don't talk to me.
The funny thing is, though,
we will have a very intense conversation or no conversation at all.
Okay. Yeah.
The funny thing is when you talk about going down conspiracy routes, though, is I would not consider myself, a tinfoil hat person either. Not that you do, but I mean, I'm not saying I don't consider myself that, but you're about to get into the Kennedy assassination. And even though the way you're going to the stuff you're going to inform me about, I never, for whatever reason, got further into other things that happened. But it's I don't even understand how it qualifies almost as a conspiracy, because I've never, since I was a kid and heard anything about it and started paying any attention to it, for 1 second, have I ever thought there was a lone shooter.
No, it's one of those. If you believe the official Kennedy story, you either don't know anything about it or just you're a moron. That's honestly, that's one reason I kind of picked this.
I didn't know specifically anything about the George Bush thing.
Yeah,
but
no, I didn't either.
Not knowing, I didn't know anything specific about it, but not knowing anything about it, I still was Oswald didn't do that shit.
Well, okay. Do you guys know where the origins of the term conspiracy theory come from?
No.
Actually, you know what? I feel like you actually put this on a post one time, and I don't remember, but so feel free to
feel free to
Okay, so in 1976, the CIA was trying to discredit people who had a problem with the Warren Commission, which the Warren Commission was It was the commission they put together to come up with the official story for the Kennedy assassination.
Oh.
And they literally released a memo being like, we're going to call these people conspiracy theorists. We're going to pretend like we're going to say like the arguments they use. It's so funny to me. Like, and I'm not.
So this is technically the first conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
With that label.
Yeah. This is the origins of the term conspiracy theory come from the CIA.
Huh. That is really interesting.
Yeah. And like, I don't kind of how to admit to, because like the thing is everything gets lumped together that is not part of the official story gets lumped together as conspiracy theory. Everything from like, hey, like I don't, this story about the Kennedy assassination doesn't make any sense to like reptilians run the world. Yeah. Like and
birds aren't real.
Exactly. The earth is flat.
Or
like, whatever. Yeah. Or yeah. Right. But like my thing is, to me, what is fascinating to me about conspiracy theories, the thing that gets me going more than anything else is understanding these connections between people, which is the other reason I kind of chose this George Bush thing is because like, I feel like there is a, you talk about bullet trajectories and, could he have made the shot, all of this shit. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I'm not a marksman.
Yeah.
I can't.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll say that I've been in the building that and stood where he supposedly shot. And I mean, dude, I'm not a marksman either. I've never, I've only, but it
didn't seem viable.
It didn't seem too viable to me, but
you heard the old Bill Hicks bit about that, right?
I don't know if I have.
Where he talks about, he's like, yeah, you can go to the school book depository where Oswald took the shot. And, they have the area blocked off where he actually did it. And it's because if you walked up to the window, you'd be like, there's no fucking way.
Right. Okay. Yeah. As I should have clarified, you're right. You can't technically walk up, but like I stood up in that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you were like, nah.
And I stood on the X. And I stood on the X where they had on that street, and you look up at where the building is, and you're like, dude, doesn't it seem way more obvious like it may have came from over here? Like,
grassy knoll, man.
Okay, but like I feel like all of that stuff is fascinating. But to me, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm not, people, they talk about with all of this stuff, people get caught up on these specifics. And it's like, I don't know, because I'm not a marksman. I'm not a physicist. Like, I can't say for sure. What I can say for sure is that you can definitely, and that's kind of what I want to get in today, is you start looking at all the people involved in this shit, it is a very small circle.
Yeah.
And they all know
it has to be, honestly. It had to be.
Yeah. So you're not interested in all the super details, but the connections are interesting.
Yeah. The connections are interesting to me more than anything else. And that's one of those. And
that's how you lead to the center of the thing, too.
Totally. And like, I could do, honestly, like I said, this sort of stuff has been fascinating to me for years. I could do 10 hours on the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
If you let me. I could do 10 hours on George H.W. Bush. Because like,
I know a lot of people could from what I'm hearing now as I hear more and more.
It's been around for a long time and done a lot of shit.
Especially after the post, one of you guys made a post this week about this episode, and there was like 5 comments with all these YouTube videos, and I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. Okay, and this was the other reason kind of for my first conspiracy episode I chose this too, is like, I really believe if you are looking at the connections between people, if there's one guy at the center of it, if there's one guy to learn about, it is George H.W. Bush.
How old was he back then? I mean, was he like a senator? Or I don't know much about his past. I mean, where was he involved in politics? Because I didn't, only because when you brought this theory, because I'd never even heard it.
Okay.
And I just didn't know anything like at all about it.
Okay, and that's actually kind of when I get started on the actual facts of this. The first thing is, what exactly was his position at this time? Because there's actually a couple of different opinions about what he was doing at that time.
It wasn't grabbing asses yet?
Yeah. Was he using that joke?
Okay, well, actually, funny enough, he was, we're going to get a little bit into this too. He was a member of the fraternity Skull and Bones. Kind of when you talk about this, they would name the horniest person in the group Mammon as a nickname.
The
horniest person.
Why would you have a name for that?
Why would you name it after some sort of
why
dark
would you be in
god?
any of this stuff?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. But why would you still? it's not like your group of friends you have a name for the horniest guy.
Well, okay.
Do
well,
you?
Here, you
Well,
know,
dude,
let's just start with
Tyler,
Scully.
we're not in these groups though. These groups,
Yeah,
God, my lord,
I understand that. This just seems
I would be caught
insane.
dead.
No,
Fair
well,
enough.
okay, here's the thing. This is the sort of group where to get initiated in, I mean, you lay in a see-through coffin and you have everybody jack off on you. So,
Oh, okay.
Right.
I guess you need a
Obviously,
name
why
for the
wouldn't you? And
horniest
why
guy
wouldn't you
in
do
that
that?
case, right? What is it? Well, how do you know that? How do you?
And I bet it was.
you.
Oh, go ahead.
how do they pick you? It is super exclusive. It is a Yale fraternity.
I mean,
Like-
how do they pick you to be the horniest guy?
How do they pick you to be the
Like,
horniest?
is there qualifications?
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Like,
assuming
You
you're
came
just...
the most on
Dude.
the coffin.
I mean,
You have to
pick
think
our
about this, by
circle
the
of
way.
friends, I could start ranking people by their horniness, right? Like,
Yeah, but think about this though, dude. Think about when you're asking like the horny. Like, yeah, I think you're right. I honestly do think if you sat there amongst your guy friends, you could kind of do it. But
What is
think
the name
about who
again?
would win the horniest.
No, the name of
like,
the horniest guy.
Mammon.
Mammon.
in this
We got-
group, though, this exclusive group of
Yeah.
just privileged as it fucking gets. Don't even care.
Absurdly
Nothing is
privileged.
right. Just not even worried in any capacity about repercussions from their life. And they can pay to get out of anything. That no one fucking and like you're still like in this group of fucking what is the word I'm looking for? Shit, alpha male privileged people. You're
Yeah.
the horniest, like notably the horniest
Yeah.
in that group. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the mammon in this group?
Who's
Who
the
did-
mammon in this group?
Yeah, who's the mammon in this group?
I
See,
mean,
you know the funny thing is,
I'm gonna say Scott's the
I was
mammon.
gonna say me.
I'm
I was
gonna say
say
Scott's the
that's
mammon of the
probably
group.
True.
Yeah.
That's probably.
I
true,
think that's If you, it depends on if you're talking about because I don't know. I jerk off a lot. So,
Yeah, really.
but like,
Anyway, get into the theory.
Okay, no. Okay,
So, yeah.
speaking of just another skull and bones jerking off fact. So Prescott Bush, who is George H.W. Bush's father,
yeah.
actually grave robbed Geronimo's grave, and there are stories about them jacking off in Geronimo's skull.
Why are
Oh
they
my
all
God.
masturbating on stuff? Why is that their deal?
And I'm sure it was somehow sold as we're so anti-gay. Probably like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
We're
gonna
such dudes.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
it's that
fucking love
level
pussy.
here.
You don't think any of them are like giving their friend a hand?
Dude, I mean, this isn't. You don't want to get too off this.
Circle jerk.
I feel like maybe.
Sometimes.
Oh, I could
Imagine this.
100% see it. I don't think they care. I don't think they
Imagine this.
care.
Imagine this: you are inside of a see-through coffin inside of Skull and Bones, and this is documented historical fact. This is not something
Right.
I am pulling out of my ass. There have been scholarly books written about it. You are inside of a see-through coffin, and your dad is a member of Skull and Bones,
Right.
and he's jacking off on your coffin.
I
mean,
don't
that's
even
what we're-
understand
That's
how.
what we're talking about here.
There goes all our viewers.
I don't get it.
There goes every download we ever had. Talking about George Bush fucking jerking off
Prescott
on-
Bush jerking off on George H.W. Bush.
I don't know. That could get some pretty good hits if you put it into the right, well, not analytics, but I'm trying to think of the wording.
Pornhub?
Yeah,
Like,
welcome
what?
to Two Hippies, One Drunk, a Pornhub exclusive. No,
God damn it, I can't think of the word. But anyway, go ahead.
no, but yeah, so like, and Geronimo's relatives have sued Skull and Bones to try to get his skull back. They won't give it back.
What?
Yeah,
Really?
His skull
Yeah,
is it they
like
won't? They
his
won't give it.
family?
yeah.
Like want
Is it just not-
Geronimo's been like, give us the skull back, and they're like, no, we're gonna fight this.
Has it just not been proven that it's theirs, or like do they just say nope, it's not his? You're lying, or do they say yes, but we're not giving it back?
They more or less say yes, we're not giving it back.
Wow.
The cockiness, the boldness of that.
I mean, because that's the thing, is because there have been actual in-court lawsuits over this, and they have not denied
That's
that
crazy.
they had it. They just use lawyers to keep
Right.
Geronimo's family from getting his cum-covered skull back.
I know. Why do they even want it back at this point? But I get it.
Yeah. The
Okay.
principle of the thing.
So you were asking kind of about what George H.W. Bush's situation was, like where
Right.
he was in life at this point. And I mean, he was in his 40s. But more importantly, like I think his early 40s, but like he more specifically, he supposedly ran the CIA from 1976 to 1977. That's the only record we actually have of him being in the CIA for a long time, at least. But this theory sort of developed at first when a reporter for The Nation, whose name is James McBride, he was going through old memos that had been released and found an FBI memo of Herbert Hoover, who was the head of the FBI at the time. You guys know who Herbert Hoover is, right? Debriefing two people the day after Kennedy's assassination. One of them was like some high-level CIA like station chief, and the other one was George H.W. Bush.
They were questioning him?
No,
Like
debriefing him. Like
telling him what happened.
telling him what happened. It was specifically, I mean, you could go deep into this, but it was debriefing about how Cuban expatriates were going to respond to it or whatever. But the important thing is that like he was getting debriefed on this. This was 1963. This is 13 years before he ever technically officially was in the CIA.
Huh.
Yes.
I see.
And so they
yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Why would they debrief you? That seems like they should be interrogating you.
Well, okay, and this is what they actually ended up doing was they took like the Nation reporter and stuff like that when he was writing this article starts calling the CIA. The CIA is like, well, we'll look into it or whatever. Their story ends up being like, oh, it was another like night clerk who worked for us for a little bit named George Bush.
You know what's funny in some of these high-end conspiracies is that like even in these high-end conspiracies, there's still like it's hard to keep a conspiracy. You know what I mean? Like it's even when there's high up people.
There's too many factors. Yeah,
just how you word things, how you like they still make not mistakes, but just things that later people can look back and be like, okay.
But also, I feel like what you were saying earlier about how they created the word conspiracy theory to derail that shit, like so that they can do whatever the fuck they want, and then they're like, oh, you're a crazy person if you think that that's.
Oh well, I mean, look at Scott knows so much more about these than I do, but the two I've always been into is and then aliens, and that's what they've 100,000,000% done with aliens. Just made it seem like anybody
a wacko or a hillbilly.
Hey, we should definitely do an episode on that at some point because the Pentagon, the last couple of years, has been very forthcoming.
Yeah, just like
with aliens
are coming. Like,
right?
Yeah, we're preparing
you.
Anyway,
but yeah, no, like okay, so like, and they put it all on this like night clerk that nobody can find or anything like that. And it's also like, why would some random night clerk be one of the two people getting debriefed
on the killing of the president of the United States
and happened to be named George H. Bush?
George Bush. The memo says George Bush.
All right.
For whatever that's worth. And if you want to get deep into, I'm just saying. Because the CIA does stuff like this, if you wanted to provide cover for a wealthy, influential son of a senator working in the CIA, you'd maybe hire another night clerk named George Bush.
Right.
Yeah, just so you could pin shit on him.
Yeah, exactly.
So you could put him in that position. Yeah, that's the art of war.
So at this point, he's in his 40s. What is he, like a lawyer technically?
Yeah, what is his job?
Or do we know?
He always wanted to get into. He was an oil man more than anything.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Duh.
Yeah, and in fact, okay, here's another weird thing as far as his connections to the CIA is he ran this company called Zapata Oil that was straight up like a CIA front. It started in 1953 with a guy who worked in the CIA. So it's like he was always a CIA guy. He was always an intelligence guy.
Yeah.
They would take these
I feel
oil.
like that's how that goes, though. Like if you're in the CIA, you're in it before everyone knows.
Oh, absolutely. And Yale and Skull and Bones are a huge like intelligence.
Because then you get a few years of like no one knowing you're in the CIA. You can get away with more shit.
Also, if you ever have supposedly left the CIA, you didn't leave the CIA.
Yeah, it's a life job. It's a life job. You were an informant forever.
And yeah, like, and when you get into, because especially, but I'm not even going to get into that. That's a major offshoot. Anyways, yeah. So like you had, they would run these Zapata oil companies, which was literally like at the time, there were a ton of tensions between Cuba and the U.S. Fidel Castro was in charge. He kicked out a bunch of American companies, all of that. They had like 3 oil tankers just randomly, like it didn't even make sense that they were really in Cuba because Cuba doesn't really have a ton of oil or whatever. and they were just, it was a place for spies to meet up and like just to cover.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
Are we talking about Austin Powers here again? Or are we talking?
Yes.
Right.
Pretty much, man.
You know what's funny about
seems like it could be like one of those like crazy like pirate places where you just go and like do like I don't know, like a pirate town. You ever seen those in movies and stuff where it's like lawless?
Maybe in like the 1600s or something.
Not recently.
No.
Fair enough.
No. Well, and it like as a
I know nothing about Cuba.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's not like I'm
Cuba's
coming
really
from a place-
important. Yeah. Well, here, like just very briefly, Cuba is really important to this too because Cuba was like this was during the Cold War.
Right.
And so the whole major basis of the Cold War was capitalism versus communism, broadly speaking. And Cuba was this spot that was close to the U.S. that had turned communist. And Fidel Castro, who Fidel Castro literally went in. I mean, if you talk about the CIA works for, they were always created. They were originally created as the OSS. They work for financial industries more than anything else. And a ton of oil people, a ton of financial people, a ton of like just bananas and shit like that. Like all these companies had been kicked out of Cuba. Yeah. So there was a very strong reason for the U.S. to increase tensions with Cuba and stuff. So if we're talking about reasons why Kennedy got assassinated, I think there's a lot of them. Do you have some, Eric?
I mean, I've always, I'm assuming I've always assumed something with Cuba. I also really, and I don't know if this fits into George H. Bush's situation, but I always felt like mob related too, for sure. Like,
oh, absolutely.
The dude got hired, basically got put into office because of Chicago mobs. And then he kind of was going after legalized crime. Legalized crime. Is that what you call it? Mobs? It's called legalized. Is it legalized crime? They call it?
Organized crime? Is that the
there's a term I'm thinking. Organized crime. Duh, fucking idiot. But like, so I'm not sure where those kind of fit, but I certainly have always thought some level of mob relations was part of it, and then, but also something with Cuba. But when I've always been so interested into it, I've more dove into just reasons why it wasn't Oswald as much more than looking into what the real reason was. Yeah. Like, I mean, I remember. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, well, I was gonna say, even like, I don't know how old I was, but I mean, man, I must have been only like between 10 and 13, not much older. Yeah, if not in that range. And I remember like literally getting a book on tape and listening to it each night about like, it was like a description of like what Oswald's life was like. It was like a biography, but more of like a biography in the sense of like, this is what led to all this. And it was like, and when you just listen to that, you're like, you just don't believe for a second.
Some doesn't ring true.
Right.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah, and that's kind of, honestly, to me, like, I feel like that's the healthiest way to view all conspiracy theories like that. Like, we're talking about a specific idea today that I feel like has a decent level of, like, substantiation to it. But, like, I totally think, like, with all of this stuff, like, the most important thing, the thing I will always hold on to with all that is like, okay, the official story is bullshit. We're never going to know exactly what happened, but the official story makes no fucking sense.
I mean, dude, I know it's so simplistic. I know this is the most simplistic way you could word it, but I'm sorry. If someone hits a kill shot from whatever, a few hundred yards away behind you, I mean, it's the most simplistic thing here, but your head does not fucking just his angle of his head. And then the other thing to me is just that full on. There are so many reports of people hearing gunshots from the fence area. And I'm not saying who shot him, what, but the idea that we just sit there and go, yep, no, I mean, they don't even acknowledge there was a second shooter. And
No.
if there was like an official report that was like, oh yeah, there was shooters, but we pinned it on Oswald, I might never have gotten so into it.
Yeah.
No,
It's just that
okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
And do you know like the latest theory that the latest like mainstream theory for people who don't want to look into this further is that to me is so fucking goofy is like, oh, actually one of his bodyguards accidentally like had their gun go off and killed him, and then so they covered it up.
Why even then why that would be so have explained at this point. They would never have gone down this Oswald route.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because that would have been so much easier for them to say.
I was going to ask, like, I know this might be jump the gun a little, but like, is your theory that George Bush was the one who pulled the trigger?
No, absolutely.
Oh,
okay.
No.
Just
I'm assuming it was that he said.
Okay.
How deep? How close to the make this happen does the theory go? Like, I mean, was he the guy saying?
I would say
that made the decision.
I would say him, the recently fired CIA director Alan Dulles. Because here, let me real quick, like, because we'll get into what happened. With
I know
the
there's
CIA.
a lot here.
That's super important. Okay, you guys familiar with the Bay of Pigs? You know anything about the Bay of Pigs?
I know a little bit about it.
Okay,
I know that. Go ahead.
No, what do you have, Eric?
I mean, dude, I'm just dumb. All I know, I think from what I remember, basically, it was I guess an attempt to get Castro right or something, and it failed miserably. Yes. I as far as I recall, and we were so embarrassed by it failed. And the problem was we really didn't want them, like, we didn't want it public that we were going to be going after Castro. So they had to just to not, right or no?
That's pretty close. What it actually was more so was it was an attempted coup on Castro, and they were sending in a bunch of military and CIA guys. And the CIA knew it was going to fail. They always knew it was going to fail.
So that I didn't know.
And their goal was to pressure Kennedy into doing a military invasion by having this failed attempt and having him have to respond, essentially.
Right. And the funny thing about this is the Kennedys are the whole family. It's weird because I know that when you get into the Bush stuff, there's so much there. I know the Kennedys are way different in as far as their, like, you know, in my opinion, like from what I can tell, as far as their like their misdoings, like a lot of their misdoings are banging chicks and, you know, stuff like that.
I was gonna say also, because all of these things have a ton of reasons, and honestly, Kennedy was fucking a lot of their wives. Like, that is also
why they were mad.
Yeah, I mean, that was also.
But I always
relation soured between.
I almost get the impression though that even though Kennedy was like not a perfect human being, and he got in through mob ties into the presidency. Absolutely. It seemed Kennedy like he was once he was in it. I don't know much about it, but it seemed like once he got in, it was almost like he was trying to be like, well, now I'm in, so I'm going to
do whatever the
better the situation or do something. And they didn't like that almost.
A lot of people feel that way. I don't. I feel like
it's just garbage still.
I feel like it was a power struggle between multiple different people.
Okay.
Who, none of them are particularly, because that's what I was saying too, is like, seriously, like, because he had so many powerful people mad at him at the point where that happened, but at the point where the assassination happened. Right. But honestly, the Bay of Pigs was a large part of it, which, I mean, good on him for not invading. Like, that is true. Yeah. But, like, also really seriously, you could do an hour on the powerful people's wives that he was fucking. Like, I mean, it was also definitely a personal thing.
It's weird though, because like even though I still, you know, I don't know, I'm not going to get into the morality of it. But it's funny because if that was all he was doing, and all politicians have something, so I'm not going to say he was perfect. But if the biggest thing is that he didn't want to, quote unquote, just give in to, like, for example, like go into military action and he's fucking wives, like that probably would put him as pretty high end, actually, as a politician goes. Like, I mean, I know that sucks personally, but no offense, but who cares in a way?
No, totally. I mean, I as far as I'm concerned, him fucking like a CIA director's wife is a positive. Check in the positive column. For sure. Okay, so the Bay of Pigs happens. Things get really ugly between him and the CIA. I mean, the CIA.
So the CIA is straight mad at JFK.
Furiously mad.
Oh shit!
I mean,
sorry. What?
Go ahead.
Sorry, 1 second. I just came up with a theory myself after we're talking about this. Is this really that George? This is kind of a joke, but like, is this really just a George Bush? Really, just in the end, was he just pissed that he wasn't getting laid enough? Like, is this just a fucking?
No, George Bush was plowing ass. George H.W. Bush, they were calling him Mammon in this fucking Skull and Bones.
Horny and being able to get laid is two different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that might be why he's so horny, because he's not getting
That
laid,
is fair. I mean,
Go ahead.
This is a recurring theme on our podcast, but you have even a little bit of power. You are just smashing ass left and right.
You're getting it. You were getting it. So what's he get? Is there like proof that he was getting it back in the day? Or is that just your speculation because he was the man?
He's wealthy. He was a good looking guy when he was younger. He wasn't like he was president and stuff, but like
right. It wasn't like he was a Weinstein or some shit. I mean,
exactly. But George W. Bush was definitely like smashing ass.
Yeah.
Like,
I believe that.
But
especially when he's drinking, I'm sure.
So Kennedy is literally, I mean, he's talking to his advisors. He tells them straight up, I want to break the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the winds.
Like that's not good.
Kennedy.
Powerful people like that, right?
Yeah, he was pushing some buttons.
Right,
dude,
Scott,
like, I'm in, so fuck it.
Powerful people tend to like that, don't they? When someone comes in and says we're just going to
push back against them,
yeah. That usually goes well.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, if you want to talk about who really holds power, not even just in this country, in most countries, you start getting into military intelligence, and those are the guys.
And Eric, what you were saying by that will go well. Do you mean like 2 fucking bullets in the back of the head?
Oh yeah, dude. I was just saying, like, yeah, that's a real like, dude. Yeah, that's a real smart decision. I mean,
exactly,
dude. I don't even want to give a person a finger on the highway and road rage thinking they might have a gun, let alone try to dismantle the CIA. Like,
seriously,
and somebody, you gotta know they were pissed because he was so fucking. He was the president.
Yeah,
and they still did that shit.
Totally. Yeah,
they were so mad at him.
Well, and you get into
it seems personal now that you say that. I'm thinking like him getting shot in front of his wife, that bloody scene in front of America. Like, fuck, man. Yeah, that was personal as hell.
And that's my thing when people do this whole King of Camelot, people would call.
Yeah,
Kennedy and stuff because they kind of have this idealized version of him. I don't really buy that personally. I do. I think that it was they're all in a power struggle and he went a little too hard at the wrong guys.
Right. Right.
Little. He was really pushing it.
Yeah, that's fair. Because then on top of that, he fired CIA Director Alan Dulles, who was also like, okay, his relationship with Prescott Bush was like went way back. So these guys were good friends. They would go to tennis together. In fact, a lot of people think that George H.W. Bush got hired into the CIA specifically because Alan Dulles was like, yeah, I'd like to have that power over Prescott.
Right.
His son works for me kind of thing. Okay. So the day of the Kennedy assassination, somebody claiming to be George H.W. Bush from Bush's address. We know this for a fact because there are FBI memos about it. At the time, called the FBI with the tip that a young Republican chairman named James Parrott was involved in the Kennedy assassination.
Okay. I'm trying to I'm sorry, my brain went away real quick for a second. Should I?
No, it's a complicated thing, and to be honest, I'm about to lay out to you exactly what. This guy did.
Let me know. I'm gonna really focus here.
Yes. Okay. So you had this call, and actually,
someone called, said George Bush was involved in the murder.
No, George Bush. Somebody saying their name was George Bush called from George Bush's address and said, hey, there's this guy named James Parrott. He's part of the Young Republicans. This was like an hour or two after Kennedy got shot.
Okay.
And he's like, this guy's been talking about killing Kennedy. Like, I think this is a guy you should look into.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay, let me think about how to phrase this in the most simple way possible. George H.W. Bush pretended not to be in Dallas. He was, in fact, in Dallas. And
easier back then too, I would say. Back then to just say you weren't almost.
Yeah, not as many cameras.
his home was in Tyler, Texas. And so
Okay.
what he was essentially doing by doing this, were you involved?
I was not involved.
Bitch, I got questions.
Yeah. It was
How
him.
suspicious.
It was him.
Right.
It was George.
But no, okay, so the call comes from
And
Tyler,
am I
Texas.
immortal? Because also.
That's fair. That's fair. The call comes from Tyler, Texas.
Okay.
Which establishes an alibi for George H.W. Bush that he was not, in fact, in Dallas.
Ooh.
Now, the guy he accused in the phone call, in the tip, George H.W. Bush's assistant was with him at the time at his home, which also establishes an alibi for that guy.
Yeah.
So now you are in a situation where he has self-created an alibi for himself and for the guy he's accusing.
Why would he do that? Isn't that bad? Doesn't he want that guy to get in trouble?
No, he doesn't want that guy to get in trouble. He wants to establish he's not in Dallas.
Oh, okay. That's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing, is just, I'm not in Dallas. This guy was
But doesn't that discredit him then? Because he said he accused that guy and that guy had an alibi?
No, because I mean, we didn't even know about this for like 20 or 30 years.
Oh, okay.
Like, eventually, because of the Freedom of Information Act, these FBI
had to
memos
release
came
What do they? You know what's always funny to me? I always wish in these things. That's why it's always nice when you watch TV in a way. 'Cause sometimes TV gives you these fake just endings. They're like, "Aha, we got you, you sons of bitches."
Yeah.
But like they just skate around right now. Like for example, that alone. Think about that. Just that alone that you said has come out in the Freedom of Information Act. That you have a former president of this country during an assassination of a president. He lied and said he was and he wasn't. It's like that alone with a regular person would just be
should be
a silver bullet. Like, are you like if you want to put it on him? And so what does he say? Like, you know what I mean? When someone, I always wish you could be in these moments where you could be, because the press doesn't fucking care. A lot of them are involved in the whole thing too. Yeah. So I'd love it like one day, like if someone like you who really knew your shit could like get him in a fucking room and be like, explain this, motherfucker.
Do like one of those like 3-hour Joe Rogan podcasts where you can just get in deep with somebody.
And you need like him to answer. You need to give him some kind of like truth-telling drug.
Which
I don't think you do it willingly.
I would love even if he was stuck in a situation where you could actually honestly ask him questions and he had to respond. Because like even if he's going to lie, those lies are going to start compounding and stuff.
Yeah,
like
so
right.
But the way this stuff tends to work more is there were a couple of articles in The Nation and the New York Times about it when it happened, and it just petered out. He never even responded to it.
Oh, but back then he wouldn't have had to have, again, without like more mass
this was in
media.
the 90s when it came out.
Oh, okay.
It was actually during his presidential run, but it still got like totally buried.
That's funny. That's interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. The one thing that they did do for damage control that I find to be hilarious is Barb Bush in like 1996, she wrote an autobiography. And inside of her autobiography, she recreated a letter that supposedly happened during the Kennedy assassination that she was writing. Like she started it and Kennedy was alive. And then by the time she finished it, Kennedy was dead.
And like in this letter, she's like, "Oh my, I've just found out Kennedy
literally
is dead." Crazy.
Literally. Here, I'm going to read the relevant part to you real quick. First of all, just fun fact, she starts it out with Dear Family. Nobody knows who the letter was for. Doesn't make a lot of sense because she hated her parents. They had no relationship.
I love that you, dude. I love. I can't wait to do more of these stuff because not to get off track, but I put it. I really did. When someone on my post commented today, they were looking forward to this. It's like I love doing radio and I love long form interviews, but I'm not great at this. You are such a research person. Like you could be on a real show, nothing against our show, but like a real legit show and fucking
get the research for it.
And it's so good. And it's that you even
our
know
show
this.
is
like,
real and legit.
I so didn't mean it.
We need to keep him here.
I so didn't mean it like that.
He's our work monkey, and we need him to continue.
I appreciate that. I have devoted an absurd amount of time to learning stuff that doesn't pay me anything and doesn't benefit my life.
Right. Well, if we ever become really big talk show hosts,
here, we need to. Yep.
Right. That
You
is
can
true.
boost him up and then tear him down and make him do more work for us.
I
That's what
use
Good
the
point,
carrot
good
and
point.
yeah, the carrot and the
for.
stick. Yeah, exactly.
When do we get to bury him in a thing and jerk off on him though? That's when we'll know we've made it.
When we come to Michigan and actually do our initiation.
I
We'll
mean,
have to get
yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to get a glass.
I mean, our
coffin.
show gets famous enough. We're definitely just joining Skull and Bones, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean,
I'm
we're
gonna,
in it.
well,
We're
it's what
gonna
I
be
always
in
say.
it.
I'll
We're
diss.
gonna- yeah, we're gonna one of us is gonna be the Mando or Mammoth.
Well, it's kind of what I always say. Like I'll diss I diss like money and
Man.
selling out until I'm offered them, then I'm fucking in. Like
Yeah.
for power and selling out. Like
Yeah,
anyway, go on to this. I want to do this letter.
read
This
this
is
letter.
This is her letter. This is the relevant part. It's a little bit long.
So supposedly again, she wrote, this is her saying, I was in the middle of writing a letter to
in the
my
middle of
family.
writing a letter, yes. And
And,
that's the thing.
and back then, how would she have found out in the middle, dude? It really, she had the TV on. It would have been anyway.
No, okay. Here, I started it at the point where she starts to do that because there's a bunch of just bullshit at the beginning about like, oh, we
Yeah.
have these lunch days. Also, her whole dear family thing, like I was saying.
She
The only
hates
other
her family.
people she hates her parents. The only other people she would have been writing a letter to would have been her kids who were like 8. So, like,
Right, okay.
And this is not a letter for a child.
Yeah.
I am writing this at the beauty parlor, and the radio says that the president has been shot.
Okay.
Oh, Texas, my God, let's hope it's not true. I am sick at heart as we all are. Yes, the story is true, and the governor also. How hateful some people are.
She's writing this in a beauty parlor.
at a beauty parlor for
Give me a
either her
break.
estranged parents or her 8-year-old kid.
So not only does she hate her parents, but she chose this time while she's getting them.
In a hair
time.
salon.
And by the way,
It's
what
like
is
a
this?
old-timey version of texting, like writing a letter and then sending it. in
By the
post.
way, yeah.
Is
What
she
are we?
just gonna hand it to
1960?
them, or is she sending it out?
I don't. Okay.
When
Go
did this
ahead.
happen again? I forget. 63. You said, or,
Yeah, November
Dude,
22nd.
I get it. Yeah,
Give him
I
a
know
call.
I know that's a long time ago.
Right.
Give him a call. and tell them.
Yeah, I think we were beyond writing letters, even in the 60s. Honestly, I know people did it, but like it wasn't that prevalent. I don't think that a rich person like her would have been writing a letter in the beauty salon. Like,
And also, they were going back supposedly. Supposedly, they were already at their home in Tyler, Texas.
right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
That's bullshit because he already said he wasn't. He was in Boston, right?
yeah, it's a very sloppy, very weird cover up.
It's a kind of cover up that you realize that powerful people can get away with because it just doesn't fucking matter. Really?
No,
Does
100%.
it change?
They can
halfway
say
through?
whatever the
Be
hell
like,
they
"Oh,
want.
God,
And
yeah, Kennedy's dead."
Yeah, and that's where I started it, was where she said that, because the first half of it is just literally her talking about lunch with these random people and all of this sort of stuff.
Okay, so halfway through, she starts being like, "J.F.K."
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So
At a fucking hair salon.
okay, and then this to me is the most interesting kind of fact when you start connecting people with all of this. Like you were saying, I mean, first of all, you had Jack Ruby was straight up a member of the mob.
right. Oh yeah, like not even a question.
No, like an admitted member of the mob. And he knew Richard Nixon, like on a personal level. And they
Really?
worked together for years. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Of
These
course
fucking
they-
people.
Yeah, all connected with the worst other people.
But okay, are you guys familiar with George Schilt? Have you ever heard that name
Nope.
before?
I haven't.
Okay.
I'm not-
This is, I feel like nowadays his name has been buried. He was a huge part. He was actually the main part of the Warren Commission. Like they
Gotcha.
spent more time interviewing him than anybody else.
Gotcha.
I think the last time I've really seen anything about him was that Stephen King book about the Kennedy
Oh
assassination.
yeah. That was a pretty good book actually.
Did you read it?
I'm a big Stephen King fan, so yeah.
Yeah,
I
am
I like,
too.
and I had
Right.
Stephen King plus freaking Kennedy assassination. So why the hell
Right.
not?
he was that like friend of Oswald's.
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
Navy friend.
Yeah. Oh yes, I remember. Yep.
A lot of people think he was Oswald's handler, like that guy that George Schilt worked in the CIA.
Right.
Because I mean, okay, his uncle George Schilt, his uncle co-founded Radio Free Europe, which was
Okay.
like the American propaganda outlet. They would like play in the Soviet Union
Gotcha.
for a long time. I mean, it was like a straight up intelligence.
By the way, real quick, God, I
Yeah.
know there's so much you can. I'm sure can only imagine how much shit you have. It just when you're talking about Oswald for a quick second though, like, what is the theory on what he was doing? Like, he was there.
Yeah, what was he doing?
Yeah.
Like, was he there? Did he think he was there to shoot the president? You know what I mean? Or
did he know that somebody else would and he'd take the blame?
It's hard, Oswald literally, when the press interviewed
you
him
don't
in
know
the few days he
everything
was
about
alive.
everything, but like
No, when the press interviewed him in the few days he was alive, he was like, "I'm a patsy."
Yeah,
Like,
I remember that was a thing, but I just
Yeah.
wondered if did he know he was going to be one?
Did he have a gun? Was he?
That's so hard to say. I genuinely don't know with that.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think somebody else actually did it, or why wouldn't they just have him kill the president and then just blame it on him?
I mean, I would be inclined to think, and this is just total speculation, but I would be inclined to think that, like, if you were going to have Oswald do that, why not have him pull the trigger?
Yeah.
Why not have him do that? Well, you're going to have backup. You don't want to fuck up. You don't want to. Don't want to hit Kennedy in the stomach and then he lives.
Yeah.
And then he knows that the CIA or whoever tried to kill him. Like,
right.
You think several people shot him at the same time?
I mean, that's kind of what I think. I think that several people shot him
at the same time.
Yeah,
because his exploded his head. Yeah. His head did really explode. That shit was.
Yeah, and I mean, do you guys know about? I mean, there's the Umbrella Man that was in the films. I mean, there was straight up a guy giving a signal. It was a sunny day. This guy opens his umbrella and closes it 3 times.
Well, it's so out of a movie, dude. It's out of a fucking movie.
For real.
Or a Hollywood movie, I should say.
Exactly. So it's like we see the umbrella, we all take our shot, and just by sheer force of will, just statistically, we're going to kill him. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think. But okay, so
that's fair. I can get behind that.
But okay, this George DeMarenschel guy, who was Oswald's best friend, saw him the morning of the assassination. He learned how to shoot in the Navy, but he did a ton of shooting training with George DeMarenschel.
Gotcha.
This guy, his uncle was a CIA guy. His uncle was also George H.W.'s roommate at Yale.
Of course. Why not?
And
why the fuck not?
After his uncle died, like a couple of years before the Kennedy assassination, they were so close that H.W. gave away George DeMarenschel's niece at her wedding.
Good God.
I mean,
they're just best friends. They're the best friends in the whole world. There's no way they aren't.
You know why? You know what, dude? I don't want to even get into politics in a lot of ways, but I always have these theories.
Groomed? Or do you think that he was in on it?
Oswald?
Yes.
I think he was groomed. I think he was absolutely groomed. I think George DeMarenschel was his handler.
All these fucking people, like, I don't want to get too into the other aspect of it, but all these fucking, that's why we all think they hate each other. No. Yes, they have things like Kennedy banging these people. Like, there's personal reasons that will come up why they hate each other. But as far as the other shit, they're all fucking in it. They don't fucking care. They laugh at the fuck that we sit here and think they don't like each other. Like you said, giving the niece away at some wedding. They're probably sitting there toasting fucking drinks.
Totally.
Yeah, they don't fucking care.
Well, that's been one of my things all the time, at least to me.
Well, that's why normal people need to shut the fuck up on some level. Like, don't even pretend any of these people.
Yeah,
no.
Question shit.
Well, and that's my thing. When people do all of this, the Democrats and the Republicans are adversarial. They hate each other. All that sort of stuff.
Love the shit out of
my favorite thing to say, my favorite approach to that is just literally like, you understand these people live in the same communities. Their kids go to the same school.
Yeah, they're neighbors. Like they have each other over for
if dinner. They really hated each other the way that people think they would, you would have so many more stories of, like you said, like fights at like the bus stop or something based on what we see on TV and based on what we see in real life. Like, it doesn't add up.
They're the best of friends.
I mean, you think even all the shit that happened between Clinton and Trump in like in the 2016 election,
they probably hate each other, but they're all.
Oh no, I think they disagree. I think they have. I think they're like they're like you and me. If we disagree on something, but we don't like. They don't really care.
I feel like super rich people in those political positions, I feel like they have some resentments that they've been holding on to for fucking ever.
Yeah, I think they're extremly repressed people. Are
more or less that's what I meant.
Well, the other problem is they, not to get too much like into like amateur psychology psychiatry here. But the problem is, like, honestly, when you're super rich and you've been rich your whole fucking, it's always like they always say, like, with pets, like, like, oh, why does my cat care about where he sits? Because they have to come up with something in the day to do. If you're that wealthy and things have been handed to you your whole life, you have to come up with drama. It's human nature to have to, like, have something you wish you had, or it's not going to be enough because you grew up in this situation.
And have you ever heard the idea before, like, okay, like, people say money doesn't buy happiness, but they've, like, done studies on this. It does up to $500,000. You will be a happier
person. Real? Is that the study? Yeah. 500,000?
500,000, yes.
And then when you go past that, it's a problem?
Then when you go past that, it becomes a competition between you.
Dude, that honestly, and I know community. That seems so dead. I know you said it was a study, but that seems right to me. That seems very fair.
Like $500,000 a year?
$500,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you have everything.
Because that's not a lot of money in a way. I mean, I know it is, but
it's enough to, like, live a good life, get anything you want, really, and travel, go on nice vacations, all that stuff.
Yeah, like at $400,000 a year, for example, you live a life that like Tyler said, you can travel, you can do this shit, but you don't live a life where you necessarily have, like, a private jet that you own and stuff like that. Like you're kind of right below that. So that's the goal. I'm going to start to try to make $490,000.
But you could rent one. You could rent one.
Yeah, you could rent one, but you don't own it. But that's where you don't get into the competition that Scott was saying. So that's the key, guys. You want to make $499,999 a year.
I'm down. Then you live around a bunch of people that are poorer than you.
So you'll be so fucking happy.
Yeah, you don't ever feel inadequate.
Just go live in Flint with your $500,000 a year job.
Jesus. I mean, you will get robbed, and I will support it.
I was gonna say, I don't think you're gonna live there too long, but
you get a big old fence or like a
nothing against Flint, of course. I love it.
Okay, so George DeMarenchill, also friends with Allen Dulles, the head of the CIA who got fired. HW, like I said, and was friends with the guy who owned the school book depository.
Dude,
oh, fucking awesome! I can't believe in an episode about you talking about the Kennedy assassination, I still got, like, kind of a choking laughter situation. It's not even fucking funny. Of course he owns it.
Yeah.
And okay, get this. This was the most insane fact. And actually doing research for this, I read like a journalistic scholarly book. Like, it has a pull quote from Dan Rather on the front of it. So this is not fringe shit that I was reading, but a book on the Bush is called Family of Secrets. And this was a fact that blew my mind that I did not know, was that George DeMarenchill's wife worked for like 5 years with Abraham Zapruder at the same clothing company.
It's like, I was just thinking about this. They're all so close. It's like they never interact, but they're like, if a normal person wanted to commit murder, they're going to get fucked because I don't know, there's like the cops will trace back to the original source.
Yeah.
And with them, it's like they could do that and not give a fuck.
No.
It must be so weird. It must be so. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say really quick. Time was the biggest magazine at the time. The head of Time, Skull and Bones guy.
Right. Ugh. It must be so bizarre to be in a situation like you can't.
Like, I mean, I know they can do that. That's not that crazy, but like,
you just don't report the shit. Yeah, you go, okay, yeah, we released a little thing.
It must be so weird too. Like they can't fully just like walk out in a street and like shoot him. Like, you know what I mean? In a sense, like George Bush couldn't just flat out walk and do it.
There had to be like a little.
They have to do these weird things, but they like almost know they're not going to get caught. So
it's like the fact that they came up with the word conspiracy theory after this is insane.
And I mean,
they're laughing at their own murders. Like there's like, yeah, we can do it. We did it. We're gonna do it again.
Well, and okay, like George H.W. Bush's running mate.
For a future episode, 9/11.
George did run for the Senate before this, and he did not win. He's not a senator yet. But his running mate was a guy named Jack Crichton, who was like really good friends with the chief of police, and they were part of the same It was like I'm blanking on the name right now, but it was some
Yeah.
like Texas Republican Society or whatever. And you get into like when you're talking about the way that nobody's going to get in trouble, it's like, what law enforcement do we have? We have the CIA, who ostensibly is in on it. You have the FBI, who works in tandem with the CIA, and then you have the police. And this cop was the guy driving the pilot car that stopped Kennedy. That stopped the car at the book depository.
Right.
Like, it was the only
like
point
you
that
said,
stopped in the parade.
Right. And like you said, you didn't want to get into some of these kind of technical things of like more of like the guns and stuff. But like the parade wasn't even supposed to go by that book depository. Like it got
understand at this point, they had the president without,
it wasn't even supposed
without
to
like bulletproof glass and stuff. Like I get
like,
that probably happened after this, but like it seems insane that you parade him around without like legit protection.
That is true, and it's not like other presidents hadn't been shot at that.
Yeah, exactly. People had been assassinated. You should have like fucking something in place when you're driving around a city.
Yeah,
like that seems. And the top was down. Like the whole thing seemed just like if I was JFK, I'd be like, this is sketchy. This seems like something bad.
I
wonder if he had any thoughts. Honestly, like he's doing when you're doing that stuff for real. Like I wonder if he had serious like I know I'm doing this stuff. I mean, he's not a moron, but like I wonder if he really had thoughts like this could be harmful. Like, you know what I mean? Or if he
Yeah, dude, that would scare the shit out of me if I was the president.
And it's hard to know Kennedy's mental state, because like another thing that is a fact about Kennedy is he was insanely messed up.
Yeah, I was going to say drugs.
Like massively. I mean, he had a doctor who gave him multiple shots of it. A mixture of amphetamines.
Yeah, right. What was his name? The doctor that did that. They called him something.
Feel Good? That was someone else.
Right? Yeah. Feel Good. There it is. Nice.
But the president has a doctor named Dr. Feelgood. I don't trust that.
Just
man
shooting him up with amphetamines.
Yeah,
so with a needle.
So maybe he just didn't even know.
Yeah, it's so hard to know. Like, what could you? When you talk about how these people are in these solitary communities and stuff, it's like it is so insane to even try to place yourself in their minds.
Right,
their experience is so wildly outside.
Yeah.
Right. No, you're right. It's not even comprehensible or comprehensible. You're right. Yeah. To have grown up in a life like I grew up in an okay life. You know, my parents, both had jobs and had a car and didn't have to worry about food. But that is like I never even drove a new car. And you're talking about like
a guy who's level. Drugged up 24/7 and gets whatever he wants all the time. Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Totally.
I wonder if he went back, would he be like, I died young. Everyone has an idealistic view of me. I have a cool conspiracy. Maybe he wouldn't even care. Maybe he'd just be like, whatever, man. Wrote it till I burned it.
These people saying my name. It's cool.
Right. Okay. So you had all of that stuff that happened, all of these connections here. The school book depository, just last thing about that, it was also closed like 6 months before. Like,
yeah, I remember knowing something about that.
So
they like shut it down so they could get ready.
Or I think it was just closed and they were like, we need a building on a route to assassinate him. Like that would be, that's total speculation. But I will,
by the way, this isn't totally for what you're talking about, but I will say, just because you're talking about that again more, like, it's funny. I've been to 2 places where presidents have been shot at, because I've also been to Ford Theater in Washington, DC. But it's a funny thing.
Watch
like
out,
whether
you might be getting groomed, man, for the next president assassination.
Without getting into any like actual politics, like whether you have a feelings about presidents or not, you know what I mean? I don't even want to get into that. But it is a surreal thing to think like I've been in these places where this very large historical event has happened. Like as big as anything that we have in our country. Almost.
Yeah, like the world knows.
And here's another fun fact, actually, too, when you talk about that. George H.W. Bush doesn't remember where he was at when Kennedy got assassinated.
Oh, does he not? Does he not?
Everybody fucking remembers.
Imagine not remembering where you were in 9/11.
Talk to anybody who was born in that era. No. Like they remember what they were watching on TV. They remember like
what they were wearing, what they were.
And just random people. Like Kennedy was a guy he knew.
Right. Yes, you're right. That's a great point. Like my mom is just a person living in Bad Axe, fucking Michigan. She remembers where he was. He was someone he knew, worked for, and was the president. and he doesn't remember where he was when he was shot.
And George Bush didn't remember? Dude,
No.
who's heavily entrenched in all that shit, knew this man, right?
Yep. Yeah, he has gone on record when journalists have asked him and said, "I don't remember where I was."
Dude, that is
I
just,
bet
dude.
you know,
Honestly, again, I'm telling you, that's just a guy.
Little umbrella doing 3 signals.
That's just a guy who knows he can say whatever he wants. It's different
Yeah.
than you and me. That's a person who knows he can just say whatever he wants.
Fuck,
He doesn't have to answer it.
And a guy who
like,
knows I can't. If I end up saying something that gets disproven, it's worse for me than just saying
Right.
I don't know, I don't remember.
Yep.
Okay, so George DeMarenchild, and this is a letter. George H.W. Bush admitted he knew George DeMarenchild, and he knew, and that the letter was for him, because the FBI received this letter and they didn't believe it at first, and they contacted him, and he was like, "Yeah, I know the guy."
They didn't believe him, and he was like, "No."
Yeah, literally.
By the way, imagine putting ourselves in that position. The FBI calls us up over something, and we're just go, "Yeah, I did." We're like, "Okay, whatever, man."
Okay, this is the letter George DeMarenchild wrote to him. This was in the late 60s, but this came out in also like the early 90s.
Right.
When there was like a Freedom of Information Act that revealed a lot of this stuff. He said,
Yeah.
"You'll excuse this handwritten letter. Maybe you will be able to bring a solution to the hopeless situation I find myself in. My wife and I find ourselves surrounded by some vigilantes. Our phone is bugged and we are being followed everywhere. Either the FBI is involved in this or they do not want to accept my complaints. We are driven to insanity by the situation. I have been behaving like a damn fool ever since my daughter Nadia died from cystic fibrosis over 3 years ago. I tried to write stupidly and unsuccessfully about Lee H. Oswald and must have angered a lot of people. I do not know. But to punish an elderly man like myself and my highly nervous and sick wife is really too much. Could you do something to remove the net around us? This will be my last request for help, and I will not annoy you anymore. Good luck in your important job. Thank you so much." And so it's like he's literally like talking about, like, I don't know, the way I would read that at least is that he's basically like, I ran my mouth too much about the Kennedy assassination, and there are people threatening my life.
Yeah, could you get them off my back, please?
Oh my
Then
God.
he commits quote unquote suicide like
Who
3
does?
months later. George DeMarenchild.
Okay.
The guy
Yeah. Crazy.
ostensibly Oswald's handler, writing this stuff to H.W. Bush.
And you say quote unquote because you don't think he did?
No, absolutely not. I don't think he fucking killed himself. I mean, just like the timing of that, like, to me, anybody in intelligence, when they commit suicide, I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Well,
If they
gotta
pop
be-
up
yeah.
later, I was right.
right. And when the police were investigating his house, they found an address book with the CIA director Alan Dulles' name and number, and also George H.W. Bush's like name and number. So like he still had both of them. Like he was close enough to them
Right.
to contact them directly.
Yeah.
Okay. So last kind of thing I wanted to get into really quick is the Warren report, because that to me is the perfect sort of encapsulation of the last bit of like connection between these people. Because the Warren report was put together by this guy named Earl Warren, who was, I believe, a senator at the time, and he was a well-respected guy. Now, LBJ, who was Kennedy's successor, after he got killed, this guy, there was a conversation that leaked between him and a Senator Richard Russell about Warren that he had during that time period, where he says, he told me under no circumstances, and you can Google this conversation, like it's, you can listen to it.
Yeah.
He told me under no circumstances that he would do it. But then I pulled out a little file Hoover had given me about a certain incident in Mexico City. And Warren started crying and he said, "I won't turn you down. I'll just do whatever you say."
Oh God.
Boy. So he did something at some point.
Yeah. Something.
So Kennedy's successor is blackmailing the guy who made the report.
Yeah.
Right.
About that is the official narrative for what happened.
What
with
happened?
Kennedy. Yeah.
So he blackmailed him to change it.
He blackmailed him to do it in the first place.
Oh, okay.
But I mean,
again, like I know Scott didn't want to get, and we're already kind of running kind of long here, but like you could get into that whole Warren report and like really the whole report and how it really went down and like what their findings were and how they just got rid of the car. Like, like they just a week late, not even like I guess a few days later, just like, yeah, that car's gone. You can't, no looking it up
Kennedy's
anymore.
brain is gone. You can't, that just disappeared.
Right. Which would never happen under a normal.
You think they chucked it?
I think my suspicion would be that they chucked it because the story,
like seedy science stuff. Like,
well, their original story was that it was one shot from Oswald from the book depository. You have his brain, you could disprove that.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude, for sure. The only other thing other than chucking it, I could have seen is some sick, like satanic bullshit where they all like ate it because you know what I mean. Or
right. And we get deep into speculation. I mean, I believe in magic, so
I'm not even saying that it's bullshit.
Yeah, no, hands down. Do you think that is a ritual, or you think that they're pissed?
That I don't think those things are mutually exclusive.
You think that they're pissed, they used it as a
we're getting deep into tinfoil hat territory at this point.
And by the way, I should say I wasn't even trying to make fun of the idea of like some satan. I just
but me neither. I'm legitimately curious about that.
I could see them doing it. I mean, based on some of that shit going on, in their minds.
Yeah,
I mean, his head blew the fuck up. That seems super violent and like I don't know if anything's gonna invoke like energy, it's gonna be a head explode.
Yeah, and if you think about like and this is me just diving off the deep end, going deep into fucking full on crazy man territory. But a huge principle in magic is that one of the strongest energies you can possibly have in a situation is the energy of human attention, human focus. That's all of that. It's like with all you think about
the TV, dude.
Oh yeah, that makes sense to me.
You think about what a huge, massive cultural impact that's had. There's almost been no other singular moment that has had that same level.
We're putting in energy into it
right
now,
as we speak.
Right now.
Yeah, literally. So it definitely did last a while.
Okay, and then last thing with the Warren report. Also, the main investigator who asked more questions by far than anybody else in the Warren report, Alan Dulles, the CIA head that JFK fired.
Oh, really? Crazy.
Seems like a lot of people scorned by JFK were surrounding his murder.
So I would say just from your person who's done a lot of stuff, and I know you can't give an actual, you don't know. It's just your opinion from all the stuff you've kind of done. What do you think, if you had to say it, the overall reasoning
what do you think
for the killing of him was?
What specific thing? Yeah.
I think they had a lot of issues with him to begin with. I think if you want to get into like the Bushes and the Kennedys had a huge, they were the two most powerful families in the U.S.
Right. Yeah.
And I want to at some point too, I want to do an episode on the Robert Kennedy assassination, which happened months after.
Right. Right.
This was right in the
That must have been such a weird time. I know that like now we have internet and we can kind of look back and we can look way more into our government. And not that people were skeptical back. They've always been skeptical. I mean, obviously that was around Vietnam.
You didn't really have an outlet saying
right. But like back then, if you were kind of a person just going your normal American life, it was much easier, obviously, not to be aware of some of the more evils. Yeah, it must have been such a crazy thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like if you weren't
crazy time
into all that stuff, if you were just a guy working at a plant or something, and like the president shot, then his brother shot a few months later, and there's a lot of stuff going on back then.
Well, and you get into, all of these people, like I said, like H.W. Bush, Alan Dulles. Even all of these tangential people that, like, just for the sake of simplification, I didn't really get into. Think about, there were 4 different presidents present in Dallas when Kennedy got shot.
That's incredible if you really think about it. That's incredible.
Future presidents.
Right.
Because you had H.W., you had Ford, you had LBJ.
That's no accident. You know what I mean?
They were all getting ready for it. They were taking them out of the running so they could get their place.
That's what I've always said, man. I don't get getting power. I'll never understand it. If you were to do like basically if like we hit to these ideas of a final thought, like that would be mine. Like power must be amazing. It must be, because people are willing to sell their complete life and soul for it.
Yeah.
But I have never understood it. And it would just seem like I just don't get it. I've never gotten it. I've always felt like
I feel
that.
like you have to be in it to really.
You must. It must be. I mean, if you're
No,
born
it is.
in, and I would say to some extent, I am not giving them any excuses. But again, I would say as a human, as a human condition, I think it would be harder than we even realize, though, if you were born into it, to not just have that be your reality. And I'm not giving them excuses. I'm just saying, I think you would have to fight it, though. You would have to actively fight being a part of that.
Yeah. And you got to think about the way it affects people even right away. Like, I mean, like, even if we're just talking about the Bushes alone, like, Prescott Bush was a horrible, abusive father that George H.W. Bush was terrified of and has spoken on the fact that he was this figure he was terrified of. H.W. Bush was the same thing to W. Bush. I mean, like, how do these people have any... You have generally a very, very dark, very messed up family life. And then you have, on the other hand, like an absurd amount of power.
You want.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's like, how does that not corrupt a person?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Scott, he asked you about the ritual thing. What do you think that ritual would be doing?
I think there is a certain... I think that we have, I mean, even if you wanted to take magic completely out of it, even in a completely material sense, there is a ton of work put into putting us in a certain mindset and controlling us in a certain way. And at the very base level, I mean, like, you're sending a message out that, like, anybody can be got. You're sending out a message that that your life and these people you imagine are your leaders are completely out of your
powerless too.
Like, yeah, exactly.
To snap at themselves.
I think it's
my
just
thought was
creating
even
an environment of fear and paranoia.
Okay. My thought was even took, if like you said, if you took some magic or like some sort of ritual out of eating, and I joked about eating the brain, but I thought if you're that powerful, you have this big secret, you have to get rid of this thing. You're already in this, like you said, a secret society. I just could have seen it being kind of a move. Like, this is like tying us all again. It's funny, even in those secret societies where they fucking, it's, you know what I mean? Like, even in those secret societies where they all are super powerful and stuff, they still all need to do a lot of these things. You know, when you talk about the jacking off stuff, and I think Scott, you know more about this than me, so you can confirm or deny, but like, I think in the end, even though they're super wealthy and even though they're uber powerful, they do a lot of these things so they all have things on each other. So they can all be like
100%. 100%. Yeah. I think that is.
Yeah, because you're right. You can't talk shit about somebody who came on.
Dude, I saw you eat JFK's brain just like I did. So
everybody's got it.
Exactly. Exactly. And also it is doing these things that are so insane to your average person and stuff too, that even to talk about it makes you sound like a crazy person.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I agree with you. Like, that's a huge, I want to do a thing on Epstein at some point, because that's another thing I'm super fascinated about. And that was a very clear case of, like, he had cameras set up in his home.
I know,
like,
dude.
It was
so
you
crazy.
gotta wait.
If
you're doing that podcast,
all I'm saying is that I think outside of like, I do believe, like, I have my own beliefs that are probably that I don't even necessarily like to super get into as far as like a lot of that stuff, because they're not things that I know as facts, and they are things that I just kind of suspect or
right,
think about.
Which can get kind of dangerous to talk about.
Yes, but like, even if you were to take completely any sort of magic, any sort of ritual out of it, it is at a base level. Yeah, like you're creating this. It's like when you get jumped into a gang and the gang goes, "Yeah, you got to kill somebody in front of us" or something.
Right,
like that.
because it's because then they can say, "We all know you already did this, so if you do shit, we fucking turn you
mutually assured destruction." Like, we're all together now.
Final thoughts?
I think you did that shit.
I think you did that shit too.
And I think it is okay. This would be actually my final thought, is that there is, when you were asking about,
it's impossible that he didn't.
When you were asking about the what I think this thing was, I think it was, and I'm certainly not the first person to say this. I mean, there was a famous book literally called Silent Coup. But I mean, I think that's, you took the Kennedy family, which was arguably the most powerful political family in the entire world, in the entire U.S. for sure, and you decimated them in the course of less than a year to where they never recovered. And
that is, if you think about it, again, whether they were evil themselves or not, that is still very fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, even to the point where like other Kennedys are like, yeah, we don't want it. It's been solved. The Warren Report came out. We don't want to talk about it.
That's crazy. That they're still at this point.
Completely buried that family.
Yeah, for real.
Destroyed
and
their
all
legacy.
the people that were surrounding it went on to lead long political careers.
Yeah.
Went on to continue. I mean, Allen Dulles went back into the CIA for decades. Yeah. I mean, so everything the CIA did was, controlled by him. Right. George H.W. Bush, obviously, like they're a political dynasty.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That.
Crazy,
I
man.
think we did it. I think that they're too connected for that not to be the case. Whatever conspiracy, call me crazy, but I'm full on in this George Bush. I don't think he pulled the trigger, but he set it up.
Well, yeah, definitely didn't do that, I would say.
I'm hoping that the 40-year-old man just, I'm going to get him. Fucked my wife. Boom.
Hey. Wait a minute. Tyler's doing a man of a 40-year-old sounding like I'm 37.
Yeah.
Tyler's like,
I really aged him up.
Man, blah, blah, blah.
You don't think you sound like that, Eric?
Yeah, you sound like that.
Constantly
like that. When we're talking to you, I always have to be like, Eric. Oh,
my hearing's gone already, that's for sure.
He's literally indistinguishable from Grandpa Simpson. You put him together.
Grandpa Simpson. That's a
real flying hellfish right there to prove it. So
you even got the tattoo for it. Yeah.
Right.
But no, I also I do think too, like there was but just absolutely last thing. I feel he also too, man, the game he ran on just the wider society and stuff, the way he was considered growing up, that he was like literally they used to call him the wimp president. They used his whole thing was like, oh yeah, that's George H.W. Bush. Like he's like a fucking little fuddy duddy. He's like a
and it's like here he was.
No,
and it's like people. I mean, even if you were to not accept the Kennedy assassination thing, this man ran the CIA. Like that is not a fucking. And there are stories of people like there was a guy, a Chinese ambassador, who said about him where they're like a lot of U.S. people don't really understand intelligence and foreign politics, but if there was a guy I respected, it was George H.W. Bush. Like he was deep.
Those are people you want to hear giving you compliments.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's really who you want on your. Oh, he's a good guy.
Right. Not even as a good guy. The dude knows what the.
Oh, I know, but I'm just kind of like. Like, dude, he's a badass. Like we respect him.
Exactly. But yeah, you got.
I don't really got a final thought, I guess. For the most, honestly, my final thought is always. Is what I was talking about, the power. I know it has nothing to do with the actual assassination, but I've always been very fascinated. I don't really like mob movies, but I've always been so fascinated with mobs and gangs because I've just never comprehended the want to be in a position where you're always looking at your back and shit. And I would rather take a life. Honestly, I'd rather be homeless than be in a life where I have to always be worrying about
killing you.
You ever watch The Sopranos, Eric?
You ever watched this?
No, I never did.
Okay, we've been doing. He's been doing a watch. I've been doing a rewatch.
Okay, maybe I'll watch it. I got to
and also filled with that mentality of like you might always die.
And that's why I think that I would.
Yeah,
I think that I would like Sopranos, but I've always had an issue with mob or gang stuff like that because all I ever do when I'm watching is going, I wouldn't want this. I wouldn't care. Give me no.
Why don't they just hang out with their buddies?
Yeah,
right. I don't
fucking killing people and robbing people and shaking them down. Yeah, you were saying teaser. Free Britney.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit. Yeah, that's what that is next week. You're right.
Yeah, next week we doing
Free Britney. Jumping on the Free Britney train.
Yep, talking about what happened with her life, what's going on. Who's in support of her, including us, because, geez, honestly, the first concert I ever went to was Britney Spears, so she means a lot to me. So, yeah, we're going to have a conversation about
I never disliked Britney Spears, for sure.
Yeah, she's a good, does pop. She went a little crazy.
Yeah.
But Rightfully so. She had a lot of shit.
And-
So that's the teaser. I don't want to go any further than that because I feel like
that's next week
to get into about.
Cool.
that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that, especially with
Cool.
the recent news and stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Exactly. Your TikToks.
All right. Yeah. Rate us 5 stars on iTunes. Check us out. Like
Comment,
Spotify,
subscribe.
Comment, subscribe.
Like our Facebook page, guys. We are almost at 1,000 fucking likes on there. If you can share our stuff and tell your friends about it and get us up to 1,000
mean a
likes,
lot.
yeah, that would be really cool.
So close. And yeah, reviewing us, best thing. Right?
Yep. All right.
I guess that's it.
See you next week, guys.
Woo-woo.